We are very privileged and thrilled to have Lisa Pelrine, Josh Bubar, and one of our former Carroll students, Mia Canestraro, as part of this presentation this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to pass on this presentation to our guests this morning. So thank you, and we look forward to this.
Great, thank you, Charlene. Good morning, everyone. Oh, if everyone could please mute. That way there's no echo. I think there was a little bit of an echo. My name is Lisa Pelrine, and I'm the Director of Enrollment Management here at CHCH. And I'm on my 20th year, which is really hard to believe. Time just flies by. But I remember meeting Mia and doing her interview, and it's so great to have her here now as a senior joining us for this wonderful event. We get a number of Carroll families applying to CHCH each year, so I'm really delighted that Charlene and Cece and their team have asked Josh and I and Mia to have the opportunity to present to you and have some time to really share with you just, higher level of CHCH and have the opportunity to answer your questions as well. So I'm going to have Mia introduce herself really quick, and then I'll have Josh go, and then we're going to share our screen and go through a presentation. You can feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and we will either field them through the chat, or I will take a list of questions, and then at the end we'll have time for Q&A. This is going to be recorded, so if there's anybody who was unable to attend, this session will be available to families after as well. So over to you, Mia.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Mia. I'm a senior at Chapel Hill. I went to Carroll from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and then I went right to Chapel Hill from my 8th grade.
Great, thank you, Mia. All right, and over to Josh.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Bubar. I'm the assistant head of school, which here at Chapel Hill really means that every piece of the student experience is something that I have a part of. I'm going to be kind of helping guide all of you through an introduction to who we are, what we do, how we work with students. And it really has been my privilege. I will say this is my 21st year. I had Carroll School students in my very first 11th grade English class when I started here in the fall of 2001. I have Carroll School students in my classes throughout my time teaching here, and they have always been a pleasure. Carroll School, you all are very, very lucky as parents to have your children have the experience of Carroll School. I mean, it's an unbelievable place that prepares kids incredibly well for the next step in their journey. So I applaud you all, and I think you're all really, really lucky.
Hey dear, the meeting's on.
Lisa, I'm going to share my screen and we'll kind of get going. Does that sound good?
Yep, that sounds great. Thanks, Josh.
All right, and let me kind of okay, so there's our intro. We've done that a little bit. Just really quick. We're in Waltham, as I think many of you know, about 180 students total, grades 9 through 12. We occasionally have postgrads, that is students who have graduated from high school but want one more year of preparation before taking on the college experience. We're typically 60% day and 40% boarding. We're a little bit lower than that right now, in part because our international students numbers are down to about 11%, but we have a pretty robust boarding program that we're really taking pains to develop even further right now. And roughly 30% of our students are identify as domestic students of color. So we have a pretty diverse campus as well. Here's a picture of our graduating class from just a couple of years ago. Pretty good looking bunch. This group is now entering their senior year in college. That is a little hard to believe for me because I'm looking at some of them going, oh, I taught him this, I taught her that. But as Mia said, time kind of flies. I'm going to try to frame our conversation a little bit using our daily schedule. So if you take a look here, you'll see that we have 75-minute blocks, a 6-block schedule. That is, students will engage with 6 different classes over the course of the year, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Each class will meet 3 times a week for 75 minutes. We also have a number of other activities built into our schedule, office hours 4 times a week, assemblies, advisories, class meetings, club time, and we'll talk about all of those things. But first, I want to talk about the academic piece and the 75-minute class. We've gone to this model. We've been using this model for about a decade now, and we really, really love it. 75 minutes for us has really transformed the way we teach with students. It's allowed us to really engage in differentiated instruction. We have an opportunity to really provide multiple entry points to all of our students into the curriculum. We have an opportunity to really practice skills and then jump into something else and then come back to that skill and spiral back, all within the same block. And that's been really, really important. For us, it also allowed us to extend the classroom in a lot of different, I would call more innovative ways. Why does this not want to let me advance the screen? Hold on just 1 second, if you would, folks. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm.
And Josh, if you need me to switch over and share, if it doesn't work, that's not a problem.
Here we go. No. There we go. All right. Sorry about that, folks. So for example, all of our juniors and seniors, with the exception of last year due to COVID, take place in a Senate simulation. And so our Senate simulation is where each of our students takes the role of an active US Senator, and they spend the weeks leading up to this researching the senator that they're going to be, figuring out what their positions are on various issues, crafting different bills that they'll introduce. And then we spend the day in our assembly hall essentially simulating the work of the Senate. Our students have come away from that finding that it's incredibly interesting, particularly those students who have taken on roles of senators that don't necessarily match their own political views or their own ideas about how government should work. And their ability to really get into that position and understand how someone might think a different way about certain things has been incredibly helpful in their development of empathy and their development, I think, overall as critical thinkers. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry, folks. I'll try this one more time. Another piece of work that our 75-minute blocks really support is our Science Expo. This typically happens towards the end of the year, but it's the culmination of a spring's worth of experimental design and experimental work. One of the pieces that we find with a 75-minute block is that there's time to do the setup and the takedown of experiments that's required and actually be able to dig into the work. And so our science department really loves our 75-minute blocks and all the hands-on work they get to do with students. And then we also do a lot of field trips. Again, COVID has kind of cut the legs out from under that, but we're starting to get back into it now. And so for us, that means we can take trips because we have a 75-minute block, and those blocks typically back onto something like office hours or lunch or the beginning of our co-curricular program or an assembly. We'll often have a 2-hour block where our students can leave campus, really engage with something. In this case, this was a world language field trip. I think this was to the MFA. We'll go use the Decordova for many of our classes, both our visual and performing arts classes, but other classes as well. And we'll have a chance to go out, do the field trip, and then return all within the block of time that the class was allotted. So many times our students don't even have to miss another class. And when we do take a slightly longer field trip, typically the students will miss just one class rather than missing 2 or 3 or 4. And so this really frees up our students and our teachers to be creative in how we engage with the outside world as well. I'm going to try to share my screen again, but unpresent. So now you're going to get to see my kind of dirty desktop, which I feel badly for everybody. And maybe I have a lot of tabs open. I've been told that I'm a high tab person. But if so, folks, can you see that? I'm sorry, I'm hoping this will help me move through a little bit more easily.
We can see it is just a little smaller, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, let me see if I can. So if we go back to the schedule, we'll also take a look and you'll see that 75-minute block. One of the great things that we do here, one of kind of our signature programs is our SAS program. That's our skills and academic support. And so that 75 minutes is really important for that, because it allows us to both give students lessons. So for example, right now I'm teaching 9th grade SAS. I just got out of a lesson with my 9th graders where we are working on self-advocacy skills. So we're spending the first 2 or 3 weeks building some really core self-advocacy skills in our students, thinking about how do you ask for help? Who's the right person to ask for help and when? What kind of situations do you need help with? And what kind of situations should you be thinking to yourself, I think I can try to handle this my own first? Because of course we want to build that capacity in all of our students. And a 75-minute block allows us to do that work with students in the first 20, 25, 30 minutes of the block, but then allows us to have time for those students to engage in getting some of their classwork done, engage in applying some of those skills. So for example, I went through this with my 9th graders this morning, and I actually had one of my students say, I'm really struggling with my math homework. And I said, this is one of the self-advocacy questions we asked. What do you think you should do? And he said, oh, maybe I should email Mr. Bailey. Great idea. And so he emailed his math teacher. He was able to then set up a time with his math teacher to meet him for office hours. And again, practice those skills kind of in real time with some coaching right there that you can really do in a 75-minute block. Our SAS teachers love it. They love that chance to dig in with the kids on bigger picture things, but then also on their individual needs as that goes along. And just so folks know, roughly 90% of our 9th graders engage in SAS in any given year. And then over the course of time, many of them will move out of SAS, particularly in their junior and senior year. So we do have students who will do 4 years of SAS with us because they really find it to be helpful in their academic pursuits. The other piece here with our schedule is our advisory. And so I'm going to go backwards. You can see here, and I'm sorry, the print is so small, but that we have assembly twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays typically, advisory on Tuesdays, and then we have our class meeting on Wednesdays. And some weeks that class meeting block extends and it's double length. So it goes for an hour, and that's a student life block for us. We're actually doing that today. We're doing some activities around Hispanic Heritage Month today that a couple of our faculty members have put together. We have about 12 different sessions that students have chosen from, and they're going to be heading off and spending an hour doing different work today. So within our advisory program, you really get an opportunity to get to know an adult on campus really well. I'm an advisor in the junior class. I have 4 students. I've met with them half a dozen times at this point. We're 3.5 weeks into the term. We've had a chance to really get to know each other. I've had a chance to get to know them both one-on-one and in our small group, but also through reading their learning profiles, which is something that our director of SAS puts together for all of our students. So I have a really good sense of who they are as learners, who they are as people, and we have a growing sense of who we can be as a little group. It's really nice because it allows our students to have that connection with an adult on campus. And sometimes that becomes their person for all 4 years. I'm guessing, Mia, I don't know who your person or people are, but I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of them was your advisor at some point. Am I right?
Yeah, that is very correct. My probably top person is Miss Dinkle. She was my junior advisor. And I still go to her as a senior now, and she helps me out all the time.
And that's really one of the great pieces about us being a smaller school with 180 students is, my guess is that Mia finds Ms. Dinkle, even though she's not teaching you this year, am I right, Mia?
Yeah, she's not teaching me.
But she's pretty available to you. And I think that's pretty typical of all of our teachers, right? We actually kind of have these great relationships with kids, and then we want to make ourselves available to them when they need us, even when we're not officially engaged with them as a teacher, advisor, coach, or anything like that. Wow, this is tricky. Grade level
Josh,
meeting.
Josh, did you want to mention the progress reports too and how those are shared?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So one of the pieces that one of the pieces that we do during advisory and those weekly meetings and Tuesdays is our teachers write weekly progress notes for all of their students. So you would see as a parent on Tuesday morning, those go live for the students and the advisors. And Tuesday afternoon, you'll get together. So yesterday I met with my advisory group. Could see my advisees' progress in all of their classes. I met with each of them individually for a few minutes to just walk through how things were going. I had a couple of my students where everything was perfect. They were totally on. And for both of them, their goals had been making sure they get all their work in on time. You know, they're saying it's my junior year. I really got to get on top of my academics. I got to make sure I have this skill, right? My time management is getting better and better. They were really able to do that. A couple of my students, they were missing this assignment. One of my students, he had done the assignment, but he had misplaced it, right? It hadn't been placed in the right drive, in the shared drive that he was sharing with his classroom teacher. We were able to amend that right then and there. Those reports then go live for all of our parents Wednesday morning. And so then as a parent, you have a chance to talk with your child about, hey, this looks great. It sounds like you're doing really great work in Spanish. Or, oh, wow, Ms. Dinkle said this assignment was missing. What happened? And because your child has talked with their advisor the day before, you're talking to me like, oh yeah, I forgot. I put it in the wrong folder. I just put it in that new folder and I emailed Ms. Dinkle to let her know it was there. I'm all set. And we find that to be a really great, positive way for kids to understand what their progress is like on a week-to-week basis, but then also be able to make adjustments if something's gone a little bit awry. And for you as a parent to be able to know, okay, my child can solve some of these problems on their own with a little bit of support. And then they grow in that again, as they go through the system. Grade level meetings here. We have a picture of, I believe this was our 10th grade from a couple of years ago. And they'll meet as a whole, typically every other week. And this will be a time for grade level announcements. All of our grade levels engage in different activities. So for example, our sophomores right now are planning a spirit week for the week of Halloween. Typically, one of our grade levels will also take on a spirit week in the winter when we have our Charger Classic basketball tournament. Our juniors always take on Winter Carnival, which is kind of our winter trimester is kind of our longest trimester. We go for 8 weeks from when we come back from our winter break until our March break. And in the middle of that, we take a week and we just do a lot of playing. We have classes every day, but we do a lot of play. And that Winter Carnival is run by our junior team. And so these grade level meetings are times for our grade levels to plan those things, to make announcements, for us to do some student life activities as the time presents itself, and just a chance to get a sense of being a class and being together.
A lot of support, 75-minute blocks.
That's cool.
So the last piece,
the kids.
Julie says she has a friend.
I don't know if folks want to. I
Sorry,
can
if you
hear
could-
somebody in my earbud. I don't know if folks want to
don't
mute.
mind
I'm
muting.
sorry.
That's okay. I was just trying to go through and mute everyone.
Yeah. The last piece, and I would maybe have Mia talk about this a little bit in her experience with this, but the last piece of our day, and it's not represented here because this is our academic schedule, but after the academic day is over, we enter into our co-curricular day. And so all of our students participate in co-curriculars through all 3 trimesters here. And we do ask that students participate in at least 2 of those 3 trimesters in something that we call a team activity. And we construe that pretty broadly. So for example, while your traditional interscholastic sports like soccer or basketball or lacrosse are certainly team activities, we also have students who participate in theater or technical theater, and that's a team activity for us. We have students in the spring or the fall participate in rock climbing. We also consider that a team activity. We also have students who will take a trimester off from a team activity. They'll do something like fitness. We offer a newspaper activity in the spring. We offer a makerspace activity in the winter. And so there's a lot of different choices for students, but that typically begins about 15 minutes to half an hour after the end of the academic day. So you'll see on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, our academic day ends at 3. Wednesdays and Fridays, 2:45 and 2:15 respectively. And so 15 minutes to 30 minutes afterwards, students will be ready. They'll head off to whatever they're doing in their co-curricular. And that will typically last anywhere from an hour to maybe 2 hours for some of our athletic activities early in the season. For example, our soccer guys went for a little bit longer the first couple of weeks, but now they've trimmed that back to a 90-minute practice as we've kind of gotten into the season. And so that's a pretty important part of what we do. Our theater program is incredibly successful. We have a brand new performing arts center. We took our old barn, which was lovely and charming, but charming in that way that real estate agents talk about things being charming, as in kind of cramped and maybe in need of modernization. And we did a lot of great work with that. We're going to have shows going up in there with live audiences starting this fall. So we're really excited about that. And then we have our athletics program. We have lots of students participate in that. We've had a lot of success recently in terms of winning games. But for us, there's really one of the pieces we talk about is there's a place for everybody. So if you want to be a basketball player, for example, I'm the boys varsity basketball coach. We don't cut anybody. We'll find a level for you. We have a JV team and a varsity team, and we'll find the right place for you. The same thing is true with soccer or lacrosse. I mean, there's just opportunities to try things or re-engage with things that maybe you hadn't engaged with for a couple of years as you were doing something else. So that's a good piece. Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, I was just going to say if Mia wants to talk a little bit about her opportunities within the co-curriculars, but
Yeah.
also just the relationship with, you know, some of the teachers that you've had down the road or currently had as a coach. I think that's kind of an important connection as well.
Yeah, so my 4 years I participated in varsity soccer, basketball, and lacrosse. My freshman year, I had never played lacrosse before, and I had made the varsity team. So I liked how there's really one team for each sport I played in. So if you were like never played the sport before or you weren't really that skilled in it, you automatically were in playing games. And also Chapel Hill sports, I feel like they focused more on the aspect of making more friendships. So I have a bunch of friends right now who are sophomores, freshmen, juniors. So I really like that aspect of it as well. So yeah. And the coaches too. So the coaches are also your teachers. So I've made connections with my teacher inside the classroom, but also outside, like on the sports field or the basketball court. So they really get to know you so much better.
And that's a key point for us. You know, while our teams are competitive, our teams are also, I think that's a great way to put it, Mia. Our teams are about community building. And that's within their little community, but also they can serve as a focal point for larger community building as well. And I think right now we have one outside coach. So our girls varsity volleyball coach is not a current employee beyond coaching of the school, but we're really lucky because she's an alum. So she really understands us. She gets what we do. She understands what our values are as a school. And that's really important to us. We think that our students have lots and lots of different strengths and lots of different ways that they want to be seen and can be known. And the fact that we have all these teachers who really love to engage with kids as coaches and really want to get to know students outside of the classroom just strengthens their ability to help those students in the classroom as well. The last piece I would say about this and our schedule is that I think that our schedule is incredibly good at preparing students for the next step. That is preparing students for college. 100% of our students are accepted to college. We do have a handful of students every year who will take a gap year and go do something else before they start their college experience. But what we find is these 75-minute blocks and the opportunity to have office hours and the opportunity to have these advisories and assembly times really gear our students up for how do I take on a college course load? What does it look like for me to be in a 75-minute class? Because we know many of our students will be in that schedule. They'll enroll in college and they will be in that class from 9 to 10:15 Tuesdays and Thursdays. How do I approach that? Our schedule helps our students do that. How do I use that off time? Anecdotally, I can tell you, our students who come back and they talk to us about their college and where they've been successful, they say, you know what, it's really interesting. Like office hours really taught me that I could get work done in the middle of the day. So now I go to my 9 o'clock class and I'm done at 9:50 and I don't have another class till 11, but I'll just like find a place to sit down and take care of my reading for the day or do this problem set. And we see all our juniors and seniors in particular really use that office hours time really well to get work done here. And I think, so that's one of the habits that they build with us that they can carry with them and can help make them successful in college. And then the other piece about office hours that's really important is that our students know how to go to teachers and ask for help, and they expect that teachers will be available. And what I think they find in college is because they have those self-advocacy skills and because we've given them the time to do that, they're really successful in college when they need to go and do that. The other piece for me is as we take a look at our matriculation list, and I'm sorry, this piece is so small. Maybe I'll hit the present button and see if we can get a little bigger. This is our 4-year matriculation list, 5-year matriculation list, rather, sorry. 18, 19, 20, 20, no, 4-year. Usually we do a 5-year, 4-year matriculation list. And as you can see, it's incredibly diverse. So our students, our focus for the college process for our students is entirely on fit. We know that there's so many great schools out there. There is a right school for every student. And we don't think that that right school can really be told to that student or that family by some outside organization like US News and World Reports. It could be that a school that US News and World Reports thinks is lovely and highly selective and in their top whatever number you want is the right fit for a student. It could be that a different school is the right fit. And for us, it's all about who can you be on that campus? What opportunities are you going to have to participate in campus life, to be a really important part of what's going on there, and to really explore the things that you value and that you want to be the piece of your college experience. The name of the college for us doesn't matter that much if the experience isn't great for the kid. And so for us, through this year, we've had 189 graduates go to 111 different colleges. And what I'd urge you as you do this college search with your children is, as the high school search rather, is to look at other schools and ask them, so, how many different colleges have your graduates attended? And how many graduates do you have? And what I think you're going to find is that many, many schools in the Boston area will have twice as many, more than twice as many graduates over this period of time, and might attend fewer colleges. And to me, that's fine. Schools do things differently. But for us, the importance of fit and the importance of finding the right school for each student trumps everything else. So, is it going to go?
No. Well, we're trying that.
No.
You want to talk a little bit about the college process now that you're in your senior year, and I know you participated in the college boot camp this summer. Do you want to just comment on that a little bit?
Yeah. So the college process at Chapel Hill starts, well, at least for me and like my mom, it started at like the end of my sophomore year, but we like to get ahead in a lot of things. But it starts in your junior year in the winter. So during that year in your English class, you write your college essay. So there's definitely a bunch of different phases of the college essay. So there's like the first draft, and then usually they'll be until like a draft number 3. So in going into the summer, you've already had your college essay completed. And then the last week of August, Miss Fink, our college counselor, she runs a college boot camp. And it's a week of going to school for about like, I signed up for the 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock classes in the morning. But you complete the whole Common App and you apply to all the colleges, and you make a really strong list of all the colleges that you want to go to and apply to. So far the process has been very stress-free, which I personally like. So.
Thank you, Mia. I just want to briefly talk about how you can engage with us throughout the admissions process. So thankfully this year, we are able to bring back on-campus open houses, which is fantastic. I think for many of us, we're eager to get back onto campuses and get to know the faculty, the students, and just kind of the culture of the schools. So we usually offer 2 fall open houses. So this year we have one on October 24th and one on November 7th. Registration, you can register ahead of time, but we usually ask folks to start arriving around between 12:30 and 1, and the program will start right at 1 o'clock. We're still trying to figure out, based on RSVPs and numbers, what exactly the open house will look like, but there will be a separate venue for students and a separate venue for parents. So that way students can really kind of get in and experience what it would feel like to be a student here. Both of them are on Sundays, and even though we are a boarding school, we don't have classes on the weekends. So you'll get to, tour campus, but without classes actually happening. So we do urge everybody to come back for a visit during the school week when school is in session. So we typically offer tours and interviews during the academic day. So we are offering them both on campus, but if families are still not feeling comfortable coming to campus, we will still offer a virtual option for you as well. We follow the typical February 1st deadline, and then decisions go out March 10th. And then we'll have a revisit day this spring before you need to make a decision on where you're going. Like Josh said, it's about best fit. And I think the more you can get to learn and know schools through different types of opportunities, I would encourage you to do that. You have an amazing placement team at Carroll, and they do such a great job getting to know the schools they're referring you to. So I always have had a great appreciation of working with Charlene and Cece and their team over the years. And I feel like when a student is coming to CHCH for a visit from Carroll, they're very much prepared and understand who we are as a school, but also very much in line of our mission. And there's a common reason why you're looking at CHCH. So, and they're great at getting all of the materials that they're responsible for getting us by the February 1st deadline. So like Mia said, with the college process she's going to, it's been very stress-free. That's what we were hoping as a team between the Carroll placement folks and us here in admissions, is to try to make this as painless as possible for you and a fun and engaging experience. I always appreciate when students take the journey as their own journey and not necessarily like, where are my friends applying or where are we going? It's again about best fit. So I would encourage you as parents to just kind of keep an open mind throughout this process. You might fall in love with a school that maybe you never heard of, or maybe, some of your, students' friends don't go to, but you never know. There are so many options in the Boston area and beyond. And, some local students even look at us as a boarding option. So maybe if you're interested in boarding and don't want to send your students an hour or two away, if that's kind of scary for you, but want to give them that opportunity of independence, we could be a great option for that. So my advice is just to keep an open mind, go to as many things as you can, talk to as many people as you can at the schools. We'll have other events too, such as a parent event, whether that's depending on what happens with COVID, either in person or virtual. So again, we're trying to create as many opportunities for you all. Josh, if you could click to the next slide, please. Yep, perfect. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the application process. So again, you have from now until February 1st to engage in your campus tours and interviews and, working on your applications. This year we are accepting, we're just going to be using the standard application online. There's a link to that right on our website under how to apply. We had our own online application, but we just, again, want to streamline things and just make it as easy for families just to kind of have that option. For many Carroll families, I know the majority of you have had neuropsych testing done. That's extremely helpful to us in the admissions process. I would encourage you, and I'm sure everyone at Carroll does a good job of making sure that's up to date within 3 years. So we would accept a neuropsych within 3 years. If it's becoming at that point where it's starting to expire, or maybe after the 3-point mark, once your child is entering high school in September, it might be good to book an appointment to get that updated. So like Josh says, our director of the Skills and Academic Support Program writes a learning profile on every student, and that's updated every year. And really where we get a lot of that information is from the testing, from all the great teacher recommendations we get from Carroll, from you as parents, the student application, and really get to know your student that way. You also can take the SSAT. That's absolutely fine to take that in addition to a neuropsych. And if you don't have a neuropsych, that's okay as well. But the SSAT is optional. An interview is required. And again, another great thing, I think the Carroll placement team does a great job of really preparing students for their interview. I remember, Mia was very prepared for her interview, just kind of knew a lot about the school ahead of time, asked some really great questions. But we just really want to get to know your students and who they are on a normal day. We at Chapel Hill don't have a formal dress code, so don't feel free don't feel obligated to, wear a suit and tie or dress. We want students to feel comfortable and just be themselves. We do interview the students first, and then we will meet with at least one parent or both parents, whomever is able to attend the interview after that. So it's just really a great way of just hearing from the student and what they're hoping for in their high school experience. We do get a number of students also applying for our 10th grade, which is great. And every year we do add about 10 to 15 sophomores, either coming from other private schools that go through 9th grade, or for students who have tried their public school and it's just not the right fit. So I will say for your students, don't worry, they won't be 1 or 2 new students coming to the school and not knowing anyone. And Mia, you can maybe attest to this, just, having new students come to the school, it's exciting for our students, and you feel welcome right away and you get a student buddy and such. So, and as I mentioned, February 1st is the application deadline, and then March 10th is the notification date. I just briefly want to go over the next slide, which is kind of the fun topic of financial aid and scholarships and such. I don't know if that's working.
No, feels like one of the things we're struggling with is when people come in, then it wants to get tricky, but
yeah.
That's okay.
No worries. All of this information is on our website under admissions, affording CHCH, but we do offer need-based financial aid, and we do also have a number of scholarship opportunities. We do not have a formal application for the scholarships, but we do kind of as an admissions committee, as we're going through the process and identifying some students that might exhibit, really strong character and leadership and commitment to learning, or someone who's really, could really add to the boarding community, for example, or really has, strong athletic or arts contributions. So we kind of identify those students throughout the process, and knowing that maybe, if a family's like, CHCH is really at the top of our list, it just feels like a good match. Those are all great conversations to have. And we try to do as best as we can to make this affordable for families as well. I know sometimes this is an intimidating topic, but we are here to help and try to navigate you through the process as well. So that's kind of just a lot of information. We can just spend a little bit more one-on-one time if anyone has questions on that. I'm not sure if there's any slides left after that, Josh? I don't remember.
No, I think that's it.
That was it. Okay. And I do want to, one thing I did forget to mention, as far as the world languages, Josh mentioned world language field trips. We do offer French and Spanish. Many times students will be coming to us with a neuropsych that has a world language waiver. We do still require students to take a 2-year language, 2 years of a sequential language. Perhaps maybe you're not taking it your freshman year, but have plenty of time. But Mia, do you want to speak to that a little bit? Because I know that was one of the things I remember chatting with your mom about through the process, and she was extremely nervous about that. And I know you may have been as well.
Yeah, I think that was like the most thing I was nervous to do when I came to Chapel Hill. So my freshman year, I took Spanish 1. And also I took SAS. So having that SAS really helped me do like my Spanish homework. But also I feel like in world language classes, they also focus like on the culture, and you learn a bit more about how like people live. So it's not really like memorizing like the words and like phrases. So they try to really make it fun. I definitely like worried myself way too much about it. It was not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. And the teachers are also really amazing, and they understand that like we have like, at least me, like I had dyslexia, and it was even hard to just like learn English almost. So so they really understood.
And how many years did you end up taking, Mia?
So I took Spanish 1 my freshman year, and then I just took Spanish 2 my sophomore year.
Okay, great. And you survived.
You survived, yeah.
Great. And when students enroll, in the spring, early summer, 9th and 10th grade families will meet with our 9th and 10th grade program director and meet with families one-on-one, including their student, to talk about scheduling, not only for freshman year, but future years, and what are the different paths that students can take, especially if they might have a strength in a particular area. How can we continue to challenge that student in that area, but they might need, you know, some scaffolding and, you know, executive function skill building or whatever it might be through the skills and academic support program. So all of those things are a conversation that we engage through that process with. Yeah, so I guess we have about 20 minutes left, and thank you, Josh, for going through that presentation and for Mia contributing. But I guess we could open this up to any questions that families have. Feel free to either put it in the chat, or you can feel free to raise your hand or whatever. If someone wants to be brave enough and go first. Any questions?
So I have a question.
Yes, Charlene.
Charlene Kometz. This is for Mia. Mia, can you give us, or would you please give us some advice to the current Carroll parents they can pass on to their students on how to take on this process? Or what advice would you give your younger self if you could go back as an 8th grader and you are now at Chapel Hill, what you've learned? What advice could you give them?
I would say to definitely like start early. I know like when I was starting, my mom, like even college too, like she's always like, we have to start early, we have to start early. And I definitely would recommend that. Go like tour schools, do the interview. And also I feel like, so I applied to a bunch of other schools. I only did get into Chapel Hill, and then so it was only like Chapel Hill or C8, C9. So I kind of like just knew like this was like the right place for me. So I would just say like trust your gut.
That's great advice. Thank you, Mia. We have some questions in the chat, but before that, I noticed that Megan had her hand raised. So Megan, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, yes. So I think that for many kids at Carroll, they have a kind of an uneven learning profile in the sense that they might have an area of challenge, and then they might have an area of strength. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you, it sounds like I've heard a lot about how you support the kids, and I think that sounds wonderful. And I wonder what you do for kids that, you know, need that support, but also can do, you know, they have like an area where they, you know, can go farther. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. Josh, do you want to start with?
Yeah, absolutely. So the phrase we use, Megan, to talk about this is asymmetrical excellence. It's actually kind of funny. That phrase comes from the Chauncey Hall, description of Chauncey Hall in the late 1800s. So we're a school that merged in the early 70s. But we were, you know, historically, we've been serving students with profiles like that for, you know, over 100 years. And so for us, that takes different forms. You know, one of them is in the moment to moment of the classroom, we're always looking to engage kids at a high level intellectually, right? So even in our 9th grade classes where, and this might answer another one of the questions in the chat, where we are using, for example, sentence frames, perhaps to answer questions, or we're really structuring the writing process and really building from the ground up sentences, paragraphs, then longer essays. We're asking students to engage at a higher intellectual level. So our students who may have some skill deficit or may struggle in one area, we're hoping to always engage them at a high level intellectually. We also offer advanced coursework in all of our disciplines. Roughly 75 to 80% of our senior class in any given year is taking an AP or a post-AP course in something. So Mia, am I right? You're enrolled right now in AP?
Yeah, I'm taking AP Lit. So.
And so there's that opportunity as students get older to have a much higher level of coursework and potentially earn college credit, depending on where they're looking to attend. And then I would say, you know, the other piece is that even within, for example, a science class, we are looking for students to demonstrate their understanding in different ways. So if science and kind of memorization isn't a student's strength, but in our Biochem 2 class, for example, because we have essentially a Biochem 1 and Biochem 2 sequencing for science, where they're essentially merged. In Biochem 2, you're going to have to help me remember the name of the project. It's the creature. What's the full name? You know what I'm talking about?
I remember it, but
the creature creation.
yeah.
I'm forgetting the actual name. Where we're essentially asking students to combine their understanding of environments and adaptations of animals with a presentation and a visual product. So a student who may struggle with memorization is going to have a chance to really engage in systems thinking, and then demonstrate their understanding in an artistic way. So there's a lot of different components to it. So does that help answer the question, Megan?
Yes, very much. Thank you very much.
And
Awesome.
Josh, you want to mention, we do offer independent studies too. So if students, take our AP courses or accelerated or advanced courses, but there's a specific area of study that they're interested in. I know Mia's doing one, but Josh, maybe you can have Mia talk about hers, but also other options that students have done in different areas of content.
Yeah, so generally speaking, we do have a fair number of seniors who engage in an independent study. We're a small school. We have a pretty broad course offering for a school with only 180 students, but we don't offer everything. And so Mia, do you want to talk about what you're doing, and then I can give some other examples?
Yeah, so my independent study is early childhood education. So every Wednesday I'm going to a public school in Newton, and I get to spend some time in a third grade classroom. So I'm not even like in college, and I already like have like an internship. So like I just really love that Chapel Hill offers that.
Yeah. And so we have another senior right now who is an exceptional drummer. And so he's doing an independent study in drumming, but it's not just performance. He's actually digging into a variety of different cultural styles of drumming. And he's kind of mapped out, I think, 5 that he's going to take on over the course of the year. 4 of the 5 are ones that he's never really engaged in before. So for him, it's really an exploration. And I mean, it's awesome. Right? I mean, he could be doing all sorts of things. I mean, he could be taking ceramics as a senior, right? As an easy, like, oh, I'm just going to kind of get my hands a little muddy, 3 times a week. But he really chose to challenge himself with stuff that's very different. So yeah, we have a lot of different kids doing that. And really the sky is the limit. We had a student last year, his year-long independent study was to build a go-kart from the ground up, a non-kit based go-kart. So just manufacturing all the pieces, putting together all the pieces himself. And so that was a great one. There was a question in the chat. I just want to, someone had asked about, do we offer Orton Gillingham? And then there was a question about how do you assist students with dyslexia that still need support? I'm guessing those are kind of related questions. And I would say one of the pieces for families from Carroll is if your child still needs direct reading instruction, still really needs the Orton Gillingham support going into 9th or 10th grade, we don't offer that. We would certainly, be willing to work with you, read the file. If you said, oh, we think Chapel Hill is the right place and we could do outside, we could bring in outside tutoring to continue this work, we would certainly consider that. But for many families, that is one of the places where with Carroll School families, like it's not, we may not be exactly the right school. I would say, is that a fair thing to say, Lisa?
Yes, and I think that's something that, Charlene and Cece, we all work well together, just kind of really identifying that. And then what is that level of support that they might need to continue outside of CHCH, and if that would work with the family. So we would have that conversation and engage throughout that process just to make sure that there's enough support on our end as well. So thank you for covering those questions. And then the percentage of day and boarding students. So on a typical year, it's about 60% day, 40% boarding. But looking at our schedule and the length of the day, all students participate in the co-curriculars. And then oftentimes they'll stay for dinner, which is kind of a nice option. So parents of day students, you don't really have to worry about in a pre-COVID world, rushing to campus if you're stuck in traffic or late at work or have another commitment with another child. So it's nice that they always have a place to stay. Students can even stay for study hall if they wanted to, even as a day student, which is a nice option. But we do have a bunch of community activities, and we also have social chairs per grade level that are day students, and they work with our Res Life program to really work together as a group and offer different things throughout the weekend. So oftentimes day students come back for weekend activities, which I think is really nice, whether that's on campus or off campus. So those activities are communicated on a weekly basis, and I think are really a fun and engaging way for students to kind of interact. Mia, would you kind of categorize like the day and the boarding students are kind of all one, or what's your experience been as a
Yeah,
day?
I have a bunch of friends that are boarders. When it wasn't like a COVID world, I would always come back on the weekends, and we do baking activities. We went to launch once. There were like a bunch of mall trips, but it's really fun to like come back and hang out with your friends that are boarders.
And then a couple other questions for you, Mia. How is your transition to CHCH? And then also if you could just kind of maybe speak to some of the new sophomores over the years, especially when you went into your sophomore year, what was that like for them socially?
Yeah, so my transition to Chapel Hill I was very nervous in the start because I was at Carroll for 3rd grade to 8th grade. So I hadn't really been in a new place for a while. I was nervous, like the teachers didn't really know me about my learning background. But as soon as I got into the classroom and a couple weeks went by, I was really confident. The assignments that were assigned I could do, and that really felt good. The teachers just supported me throughout my whole way. But at the same time, I also developed this like independency that has helped me like communicate with my teachers, and also just like really believe in myself. So yeah, and then the next question. There are a bunch of 10th graders that come in. There's also new 10th graders that can come in like mid-year. But so like other friends, I made a couple of friends. So I had a friend, her name's Lulu. She came in as a new junior. And we're like best friends right now. And it's just been really great. They really fit in nicely. So
Great, thank you, Mia. Question for Josh. The path of the other percent of students that did not go to college post CHCH, do you know the percentage? And then do they end up going to college after taking a year off, or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And typically the answer is yes. So right now, I think we have 2 seniors who graduated last year. We had a large class last year of, I think, 52 seniors. I think 2 of them are taking gap years. They were planned. One of the students is working. I think one of our students is in the Dynamy program at Worcester. Dynamy's been a program that we've had students engage in the past. City year as well, though that's a little bit further in the past. Typically, when our students are taking gap years, I mean, they span the gamut of things, and then those students do end up going to college. Yeah, that's our typical path. I mean, we do have a student right now who went to college, took a gap year, went to college, and I was taking another year. But that's pretty unusual and was a kind of a fairly unusual personal circumstance. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much the path.
Great, thank you, Josh. Can you tell us more about your makerspace and what options CHCH offers for makers during the semesters when that's not offered?
Yeah, I don't know. I know you have never really done makerspace because you're busy playing basketball.
yeah,
In the winter.
I know that there's a 3D printer. It's definitely a very nice space. There's also a wood shop. But it's definitely like really nice in there. I'd definitely say come on like by for a tour and you can see it. But
yeah, and the 9th grade science class is physical science and engineering, and so that's actually placed right there, situated in the we call it Maker Network. So it's with a 3D printer, the wood shop, and then the co-curricular program, and then also students can engage in that just through the theater tech, right, Josh? They're doing some work if they're building stage crew and things like that. So
Yep.
there's a lot of opportunity for students to engage in the Maker Network.
And I'd also say too, Lisa, Chris Abrams, who is one of our full-time teachers in the Visual and Performing Arts Department, one of his jobs is to, I don't think we titled it this, but he is essentially our makerspace evangelist. So he's doing outreach to teachers in various disciplines and saying, hey, you have this project going on. How might we incorporate the makerspace into that? And especially now, with COVID for about a year and a quarter, right, from March of 2020 through last year, we were doing less of that work. And we're really trying to revitalize it now. And he's been doing a lot of outreach with teachers. So I'll have better examples for you probably in about a month as we get things up and rolling. But that's a piece of his job. That's a course. So he's a full-time teacher, but one of his classes is simply outreach.
Great. Thank you, Josh. And can you speak to Nikki's work here? So do you incorporate social justice issues into the curriculum?
So I don't know the extent to which you might want to talk about this and how much work you've done, but my answer would be absolutely. We're offering a senior elective this year called Peace and Social Justice. It's a combined history English elective that students take, and they meet with that class 2 blocks a week. And it is action oriented. So right now that group is, in addition to doing some traditional academic work, reading, writing, planning what different smaller groups within that group are going to do for social justice action as part of their curriculum.
Yeah, and we have a director of DEI, Nikki Turpin, who joined us last year. So Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about her work and how she engages with both students, parents, faculty, trustees?
Yeah, so Nikki's done some really great work in the last year and change. She's piloted with us, affinity groups. So we've been doing some of that work that occurs on a regular basis. We really got that going last year in the fall, and that's continued. We just had our first meeting of affinity groups last week rather. She's also doing that with our parent group. She's also been pretty active in bringing in outside speakers. We actually have something going on in mid-October with Clint Smith, who's the author of How the Word is Passed, which is an outstanding book, a really eye-opening book if anybody has any interest. And he'll be speaking essentially a fireside style chat with us virtually, I think on October 18th on the evening. And so she's done a great job bringing in different speakers. So yeah, we're doing that work. Mia, I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about U.S. history last year? I think probably there's some good work there too. Am I right?
Yeah, so in my US history class last year, it was definitely a very eye-opening class. I learned things that I've never even heard of before. And it was really good to hear them. We also watched a lot of videos and did this huge paper about any topic we wanted to choose. So it was really good.
Thank you, Mia.
There's a question there too, Lisa, about the size of the school.
Yeah, I was just going to cover that one. Yep, I was just going to close with that question. So the question is, can you speak to the size of the school and the social experience of the students? What is this thinking around keeping the school small? Related to this, I think I saw you were starting a middle school. Why a middle school versus a larger high school?
Yeah, do you want to take that? Do you want me to take that, Lisa? Do you want to take that on? I don't know how you want.
Yeah, so I can start and then you can kind of continue. So
Okay.
yeah, so we did just announce that we are opening a middle school beginning with an 8th grade, beginning fall of 2023. So it's still a couple of years out. And we often, get a lot of inquiry calls, especially working with educational consultants that really do say, I wish there was a place that offers, what you do at the high school level and the middle school level. We are seeing more and more students struggling in the bigger public schools that really could benefit from a middle school CHCH. And we did a lot of research with this and just kind of, comparative schools in the area. And so for us, it just, as we engaged with the Board of Trustees, it really did make sense for us. And we feel like we're in a good place to offer a middle school starting with an 8th grade, and then we'll roll down to eventually opening a 6th grade. And Josh, do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of our size and what makes us able to do what we do? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, some of this is, as Lisa said, responding to kind of what the market and what there's a need. I mean, for us, one of the things that calls me to work here, right, and I've spent 21 years here, is that we really serve kids who need us, right? They need adults who care about them. They need adults who will be involved in their lives, to give them some guidance and then help them flourish and help them become the person that they really want to become. And that work, we often get 9th graders or 10th graders and we say, oh man, it's too bad. I would have really loved to have that student as an 8th grader. And that's going to give us an opportunity to have one more year to really help those kids flourish and find themselves. And we know there are people who want this. In terms of school size overall and the size of the high school, we really like where we are in around 180. It really means we can know everybody. I can really know every single student. I know names. I know where most of our students, where their hometown is. I know most of our parents. At this point in the year, I'm still catching up with some of our new students, but I'm getting there. And I think that's really valuable, both for our families, but also for our teachers. They feel like they're part of a really tight community, and they feel, the mission is really clear. I think as you get bigger, sometimes that becomes a little more challenging. The other piece about our school size is that I think it encourages students to make relationships, really good relationships, authentic relationships with students they might never have done that with in a bigger setting, where they could have kind of stayed in more of a bubble and a little more of a comfort zone in that way. One of the great senior presentations, and all of our seniors, for example, will do a senior presentation where they'll speak to a large group, typically the whole school, about something that matters to them. One of the greatest senior presentations we've ever had came from a student who came to us as a 10th grader from Lincoln Sudbury High School. And he was kind of a jock. He was a varsity baseball player. He was, that was his crew when he was at LS. And what he talked about 3 years later was these 4 guys that he was friends with, one of whom was also an athlete, but 3 of whom, 2 of them were theater tech guys. One of them was a theater guy who ended up being like a journalist. And these are guys he's still friends with 10 years later. And he said in a senior presentation, I would never have been friends with these guys if I didn't come to Chapel Hill. I would never met people like them because I would have stayed in my bubble. And I think that's incredibly valuable in a smaller school, that you have the chance to meet people who aren't you. And so that's been one of the reasons we've kind of stayed where we are.
Thank you, Josh. And I will also say too, that we offer so many leadership opportunities, whether you're that really outgoing, active leader or kind of that quiet leader behind the scenes. And I think there's just so much opportunity for students to be involved and wanting to be part of a community. And like Mia said before, she's as a senior friends with freshmen, sophomores, juniors, day students and boarding students. So you're not just limited to your class. And we do have an all school prom, so we do try to, offer as many things as we can there. But I think, being able to do what we do, like Josh said, I think really allows us at that number. So yeah, Mia, anything you want to add? And then I know, Charlene, we're getting close to, or we're past 11, a couple minutes, but Mia, any final words as far as that goes?
Not really. I just want to say, I don't see myself anywhere besides here. Just the learning that I've done over the course of my 4 years here, the person I've turned into is just insane, and that it's just been awesome my 4 years so far. So
thank you for joining us, Mia. Great. If anyone has other questions, you can feel free to email me directly. My information's on our website. I'm happy to go through any questions, large or small, that you have. And again, our 2 open houses are a great way to expand what you've learned today and just hear from others as well. So thank you to Charlene and Cece for inviting Josh, Mia, and I to be part of this conversation.
We can't thank you enough at the Secondary School Advising at Carroll School. Mia, it was such a pleasure to see you again and see how you were thriving. And Josh and Lisa, thank you for sharing the opportunities that Chapel Hill-Chauncy Hall could offer our families in high school. And we look forward to a wonderful year. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.